Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Sirhan on X, coming to you live from Cincinnati, Ohio. Shout out to everybody out there. Hope everybody's doing well today. Not a big show today because later on today I'm having some housework done, which means I'm going to rebrand my new studio coming up. Uh, I will go into details somewhere down the line. Public service announcement: this show is going to be moving to prime time in less than a month because today, excuse me, yesterday, I just signed a paper to move on to the day shift of my current job. So this show will be moving to nights, and my day shift requires me to take another step up and another uh, promotional position at my job. Not really a promotional position, but a chance to move on to bigger and better things. Because in the day shift, I get a chance to do more and display my skill set. So this show will be moving nights. It'll be Sir Hunt on X prime time at 7:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. The start date will be to be determined. All right, let's get right into this a little quick. Last night, the game Buffalo beats the Jets. Storyline here: a bad night for the kickers, and outside of one Hail Mary play, which was lucky again, the 40-year-old coward as the starting quarterback for the Jets is still the 40-year-old coward who's the starting quarterback for the Jets. Dude was absolutely pedestrian at best, and I'm going to be nice when I call him pedestrian. Bills didn't look all that great, but they did enough to get the W. You fire Robert Saleh. You you have your interim coach. You strip Nathaniel Hackett from your playmaking abilities, and you give him to Todd Downing, the one-time O coordinator for the Jets. And the more things change, the more they stay the same. When people in the organization realize this, it's because you have a narcissist 40-year-old coward as a starting quarterback, and that's the problem. The Jets will always be the Jets. Uh, the game, of course, marred by garbage officiating, which everybody knows how that. I'm not even going to get into the officiating crew because I think it's just stupid. Before you morons out here who like seeing flags being thrown, I hope you guys are happy. I told you guys when this thing started that if you we're going to have games where every play is going to be called. This is the end result you're going to get. But congratulations to Buffalo getting it done. And once again, the Jets are the Jets. Until they realize what the core problem of it is, basically is GM Joe Douglas and the 40-year-old coward as their quarterback, nothing's going to change. Well, they did make one change today, and it was just announced just a couple hours ago. They finally went through with it. They acquired Davante Adams from the Las Vegas Raiders. It's a conditional third-round draft pick, which, according to this, it can go up to a second-round draft pick. But the conditions are that Davante Adams must be a first team or a second team All Pro, and the Jets he must be in the active roster when the Jets make the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl. Basically, they're only getting a third round pick for him. The Raiders basically shortchanged themselves, but they're the Raiders for a reason because those two stipulations for Davante Adams is not happening. Of course, the 40-year-old coward being the narcissist was on the Pat McAfee show as always, with a happy face when it was announced Davante Adams was going to the Jets. You know, he's so obsessed, he's so grotesquely sick-headed obsessed with wanting to do things his way. Grotesquely sick-headed obsessed of doing things that pleases him and not caring about anybody else. This is what you get. Now, of course, also announced they're going to try to move Mike Williams because, again, that 40-year-old coward as a quarterback threw him under the bus last night after he threw a nonsensical interception when there was two guys underneath that were open. They could have gotten the first down, but he felt the need to just throw it deep because he felt like it. But now apparently they're going to move on from Mike Adams. They're going to Mike Williams, excuse me. They bring in Davante Adams. Now also in that organization, they now look for a and Hassan Reddick drama, telling Hassan Reddick now he can go seek a trade. Look for the Detroit Lions to probably make a move for him because of the unfortunate injury to Aiden Hutchinson. So The three guarantees now in life: death, taxes, and the soap opera show called the New York Jets, led by the 40-year-old narcissist coward as their starting quarterback. Of course, there's going to be more drama with them guys coming here down the line. So, but not sure how much this trade moves the needle for the Jets. They're 2-4 right now, second place behind Buffalo in the division, which basically is almost like a 3-game lead because Buffalo won the head-to-head tiebreaker. But I told all you guys in New York that who were crazy enough to think they were going to overtake Buffalo to win the AFC East this season, I told you this was going to happen. Last night spoke for me. The way your narcissist coward quarterback carries himself week in and week out, like he did in Green Bay, also speaks for itself. Everybody got what they deserved last night in New York. Now to some news that broke just not too long ago. This one sort of surprised me a little bit, or maybe it shouldn't. This takes place in Pittsburgh. One report comes out that they're going to start Russell Wilson. Another report comes out that he's going to trend in that direction. For a team that's 4-2, I don't know why you feel the need to go down this route. Now, granted, Justin Fields has played very, very well, but not particularly great. But at the same time, I sort of understand it. Maybe Mike Tomlin promised Russell Wilson is going to be his job once he comes back healthy, which I'm sure that's probably the case. But at the same time, you're 4-2. I don't know why you feel the need to make the changes out of it because Justin Fields has actually been pretty solid for what Pittsburgh does. Now, of course, they had the offense looked awful in that Sunday night game a couple weeks ago when they played Dallas. But for the most part, he's actually been pretty good. Now, probably because maybe the Steelers made the investment, and as I said, Mike Tomlin maybe promised him that starting spot. But the whole thing just seems a little crazy when you think about the team that's 4-2, playing pretty well. It feels the need to make this change for whatever reason. Maybe they know something everybody else doesn't. But then again, that's why Mike Tomlin is a premier head coach in the NFL, one of the top ones. He probably knows something we all don't. So let's see where that goes. It's something a bit mind-boggling that I would think they would go down this route, especially when we consider they're 4-2. They're going to host the Jets on Sunday Night Football this week, and I think they're going to handle the Jets because the Jets are a bit of a mess. But let's see what this one goes throughout the week because apparently Russell Wilson, I guess, has been cleared to do regular football activities after having the calf problem in the whole off season, and it's something we know has been lingering. Some other things I want to touch on. So you want to go to the historical sense here in boxing, but to lead up to it, because it features an icon here in Cincinnati. I get asked a lot of questions about who I think are some of the real all-time Cincinnati icons are, not the ones that the idiots out here in the X world think are Cincinnati icons. I can bring up a whole list of them. Johnny Bench, the premier catcher for the Cincinnati Reds, probably the greatest catcher in baseball history. Anthony Munoz, the left tackle for the Cincinnati Bengals. His quarterback at the time, Ken Anderson. Barry Larkin, the outstanding shortstop for the Reds. Right now, Luciano Acosta, the premier soccer player for FC Cincinnati. Those are probably the gold standard right there. But 75 years ago today, maybe the premier Cincinnati icon that probably stands out more than anybody else because his name's all over here. The great Ezzard Charles, a.k.a. the Cincinnati Cobra, one-time World War II veteran. It was 75 years ago today he defended his heavyweight championship in the backyard of a fighter named Pat Valentino in one of the more grueling fights back then. Ezzard Charles was one of those slicksters in that ring who, when he threw, he landed, and when he landed, he did damage. One of the most precise fighters of its time. Arguably the greatest light heavyweight ever, due to the fact that He had 3 wins over probably the second greatest one of the premier heavyweights ever, and Archie Moore beat him 3 times, and also beat the great Joey Maxim, who was known for a win over Sugar Ray Robinson when Sugar Ray Robinson moved up to the light heavyweight weight division to challenge for Maxim's title. Also, 2 wins over a standout named Charlie Burley. Ascended to the number 2 light heavyweight in the world, but for some reason, for whatever it is, whether political or personal or whatever, he never got a shot at a light heavyweight championship. So he moved up to heavyweight, and in 1949, he beat the great Jersey Joe Walcott to win the heavyweight championship. Made a couple of defenses before he took on this fighter named Pat Valentino out of San Francisco. A real rugged fighter whose real name was Pasquale Guglielmi. They called him Pat Valentino because he had a bit of a hip approach with a hip hairdo that sort of caught on to the women back in those days. Very rugged fighter, one of those pure rough brawlers that would go out there and mix it up. Very good body puncher for that time, because he was always a body first fighter, always seeking to aim for your abdomen down. And it was basically always had a chip on his shoulder because he was raised very, very poor back at the time when the Great Depression happened back in the 1930s. Of course, this fight being in San Francisco, he was a hometown kid, which packed the Cow Palace of nearly 20,000 back 75 years ago today. After a standoffish first round where basically both guys were feeling each other out, rounds 2 through 4 basically were action-filled, where Valentino basically made a fight out of it, did everything which way possible. Him and Ezzard Charles were in some fierce exchanges. But from the 5th round on, Ezzard Charles showed why he was a Cincinnati Cobra, because every time he started to land, he started to do damage. And his ring generalship in the ring at that time was second to none. Never mind, this is back in the 1950s. And this sort of style was basically rampant when you think of fighters at that time. And Ezzard Charles was a master of that ring. His ability to his ring generalship, his ability to use a ring, his ability to time you with precision punching, started to show on Valentino from rounds 5 through 7. And basically, and then when it came down to the end of the start of the 8th round, all the punches that started to wear out Valentino, put him down and out, because a perfectly timed left-right combination right on Valentino was basically all she wrote for him. For Valentino, he was down and out for the count. Basically, he was knocked out due to fatigue as opposed to being hurt. But Ezzard Charles, 75 years ago today, knocked out Pat Valentino to retain his heavyweight championship of the world. He probably doesn't get talked about much amongst heavyweight history because he made his mark as a light heavyweight, given his resume, especially when you consider the 3 wins he had over Archie Moore and the 2 over both the 3 more also over Joey Maxim and 2 over Charlie Burley. But Ezzard Charles did win the heavyweight title and had a successful run as a heavyweight. Beat faded Joe Louis by unanimous decision in 1950, albeit a fight that Joe Louis probably shouldn't have taken because he had just retired as the greatest heavyweight of all time at that point. But Ezzard Charles did get the win. He won the second fight against Walcott, but lost his title in 1951 when he was stopped by Walcott in the 3rd fight. But gave 2 very, very, very tough fights to the outstanding heavyweight Rocky Marciano, especially in their second fight where he split Marciano's nose open to where the fight was nearly stopped. I mean, Marciano's nose was a bloody mask at points in that fight. Now, he didn't. Now, the first Marciano fight, Marciano won the decision over Charles. And in the second fight, Rocky Marciano showed the world why he was Rocky Marciano when he floored Charles twice. The second one putting him down for good in the 8th round to retain the title at the time. But Ezzard Charles gave Rocky Marciano those 2 fights everything he can handle. Maybe you could argue it's probably the toughest fight of Marciano's career, the second fight, because it was close to being stopped. Ezzard Charles, probably more so than any icon here in Cincinnati, a very, very well liked, a very, very great citizen here. Not only was this guy, not only the guy went up in was an all-time great fighter, went up in the Hall of Fame in 1990. He was one time here. He was a jazz musician who was a very, very, very high respected citizen here in Cincinnati. You don't see much about people here in the state, here in the city much. Probably you could argue probably the premier athlete ever that was associated with this city. I mentioned all the other icons we had: Johnny Bench, Anthony Munoz, Barry Larkin, Ken Anderson, Luciano Acosta, Aaron Pryor, just to name a few. Ezzard Charles was one of the great humanitarians here. He has a street named after him, Ezzard Charles Drive, as a statue, just off the exit, one of the parks on the west side of Cincinnati. Also has a painted mural off. I want to say it's off of. I can't think of the street's name. I want to say it's right there next off of Liberty Street. Has a big painting of a mural of him, and he's basically very beloved and very respected here in Cincinnati for everything he did, because he promoted community responsibility as well as education over here. His legacy here is second to none. It's indescribable in words. For all the so-called great icons that have come here in Cincinnati, none of them could hold a candle light to Ezzard Charles. He stood out better than anyone else because of who he was, not just in the ring, but also outside of it. He wanted to stay under the radar as much as possible because he wasn't fond of the limelight. He wanted to be more for what he did outside of the ring than he did inside of it. He was a World War II veteran, and of course, he promoted a lot of things here when it comes to stuff that is the things in life like education and work in the community. It was well documented over here. Not just only as arguably the greatest light heavyweight ever. Probably, if you talk about your all-time pound for pound list, for my fight followers out there, maybe all-time, he's got to be up there, maybe the top 25, the top 30. The fact the guy didn't even get a title shot at light heavyweight when people consider him the greatest light heavyweight of all time is a crime. I'll acknowledge I don't know the reasons for it, but Ezzard Charles was a very, very beloved figure here in Cincinnati for his time, and still is. I mean, his work is basically painted around the west side of Cincinnati, around the central and west side of downtown Cincinnati. He has a street named after him. He has a biography attached to him. There's one of the Cincinnati sites has a detailed view of what he meant to the city. I mean, as I said, the guy has a street named after him. He also has a mural painting, which I'm going to probably check out here in the next few days. But But 75 years ago today, he showed the world why he was one of the all-time greats. Probably not his greatest performance, but it was more than good enough to get the job done, because he's had probably greater performances against greater fighters, especially at his peak weight at light heavyweight. But he did win the heavyweight title, and on this day 75 years ago, went to the backyard of Pat Valentino and got the job done at the Cow Palace. So Ezzard Charles will always be a Cincinnati icon, bar none, for many, many, many reasons. Not some of the ones you see here on this app. We have a bunch of stupids who act like people affiliated with the Bengals belong in the same name as Ezzard Charles, which they really don't. A genuine good guy, a genuine great fighter, a genuine Cincinnati icon, bar none. That's the historical fight perspective for today. Going to wrap this up a little shortly because I have some people coming. I'm going to rebrand my studio. We're going to install some new carpet. But shout out to the New York Mets. Job well done yesterday. You did the world a favor. Do us all a favor and finish the job. Because it's time to the degrading knuckleheads over in LA get what they deserve. The way they carried themselves throughout the divisional series against the Padres and how they carried themselves after game one. Do us all a favor and please, please, please put them out, put them away, send them home. They don't know how, from the organization to the players and the fan base over there in LA, they don't know how to carry themselves. It's time to give them what they deserve. And shout out to the Yankees. Good job yesterday beating the Guardians. You know, they were my pick as a playoff starter to win it all. You know, looking good so far. I know they got a little lucky bounces when they eliminated Kansas City, but they looked good yesterday against Cleveland. And on that note, this is one of the shortest shows I've had because I have a lot going on. This will wrap it up for a very short sample size edition of Sir Hunt on X. I will be back at it tomorrow. Until then, everybody out there have themselves a wonderful day. It's a little chilly out here in Cincinnati today. It's still in the 50s. I don't know how where this cold weather came from. But by Cincinnati people out there, if you're out there going to enjoy this weather, bundle up because it is a little worse than chilly. It's actually cold. It actually hit the 30s last night when I was walking to my car from my job. So until then, everybody out there have themselves a good day. Enjoy yourselves. Life is a blessed gift. Enjoy it. Don't take anything too serious, especially you guys in Cincinnati. Until then, good night. Take care of yourselves. God bless and enjoy the day.